What's up, Resource Nation? I'm really excited because I have a good friend of mine that's all the way from us, all the way from Texas, right? Is that Kelly? Did I get that right?
Yes, sir.
So, guys, we get to spend some time with Kelly Rogers. If you don't know Kelly, she's a mega producer, just an all-around boss lady, like just crushes it. And she did $151 million in business last year, close to 600 transactions, already closed, I think, about $35 million this year in the first quarter of 2021. Her team makeup, just so you kind of understand who Kelly Rogers is, she's obviously the lead team, and then she has 3 junior LOs, 1 loan officer assistant, and an executive assistant, and just crushing it. We get to see how she went from $29 million, I think just 2017-ish, to now $151 million last year and growing. So, Kelly, thank you for being with us here today, and I'm just so excited that you've actually carved out time for us. Thank you so much.
So excited to be on here with you guys.
So, guys, this is kind of a follow-up of our 12-week interviews. We've had Lee Aldridge from Guaranteed Rate, mega producer Mike Morrison in Idaho, and now Texas gets to represent Kelly Rogers from Movement Mortgage. Again, 600 transactions. So let's get right into it, Kelly. You've also read the 12-week year. We work together on a not a daily basis, but we get to interact quite often. And so you've read that book. You actually have a 12-week year that will pop up, so you guys can actually see what a $150 million producer is working on, what they still struggle with. And I think it's really cool to kind of take a peek under the hood, so to speak, to see what it takes to run a team like that. So let's jump right into it, Kelly, because in your 12-week, one of the things I noticed right away that I loved is you wrote invest into leaders. So kind of a dumb question, and maybe an obvious one, but why is that important to you? And also, how do you find time to invest into leaders when you're closing 600 transactions a year?
Ryan, I just found that to me, it's more important about being significant than successful. And the way that I can do that, sure, I can reach 600 families in a year, but by investing in other leaders here in Houston and then across the country, any opportunity I get, it gives me the opportunity to help change other people's lives, other loan officers, and then all the people that they impact. So to me, that's just always been a passion of mine. And so like on my personal team, I try to rise up leaders that take on more responsibility to give me that margin so that I can invest in not only my team, but other loan officers and leaders.
I'm guessing you have to be really proactive and intentional with your day too, because you talk to $20 and $30 million producers, which is still like a great business, right? And they're barely finding time in the day to originate and find business, find referral partners, and then close it. You're closing 600 transactions. How are you carving out time to do that?
So I had to learn to be hyper intentional about everything that I do. Obviously, I have a full focus planner that I utilize. I'm very intentional about all my daily tasks. But reading the 12-week year back in 2017, it made me really have clarity around how important it was to be intentional in the micro things so that the macro things would take care of themselves. So for me, it was understanding the relationships that I had in the business and how to really dive into how do I utilize myself in a way that it multiplies me so that I can get more done.
You mentioned reading that book in 2017, and in the green room we talked about your growth, and I think in 2017 you did 29 million. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then 2018, 2019, 2020, 151 million. Was that part of your growth? Is just kind of reading that book and having that growth strategy of chopping up goals into 12 weeks?
100%. So prior to 2017, I'd been involved in a national coaching group that I was paying a significant amount of money to. I did my 2 years, as they say, and I finished with that. And I learned lots of valuable lessons in that I still utilize today. But reading that one book completely changed how I ran my business It made me understand. I was always afraid of those big, large goals for the year. My coach would always say, set your goal and set it big. And I was like, I'm going to just try to grow 10%, because once you get to like month 3 or month 4 and you're behind, you're going, there's no way I'm going to reach it. So I'm just going to just keep accepting status quo.
Yeah, I was talking about that in Clubhouse yesterday. They pulled me in because they were talking about goal setting, and they know that I've done this series on the RE Source. And that was exactly one of the pickups I said in the 12-week is so many people start January 1st and go, let's say your volume, I want to do 151 million. And then by February or March, you might be, 20, 30, 40% behind based off of whatever variable happened, And then you tend to throw the baby out with the bathwater and be like, oh, I'm never going to hit it. And, now you're starting to go downhill. Where 12-week year, okay, for the first 12 weeks, I'm going to chop that up. And I'm going to do, say, 30 million this quarter, whatever that number is. And regardless if you hit it or not, and I've found, and I'm sure you've found it because you have success to prove it, the people that I've done 12-week year and myself, you end up crushing those goals, and you get to celebrate
more than you
that.
ever expected.
Yeah, right? And versus being behind, and even if you are short, oh, I set a goal for 30 million and I hit 25. All right, cool. Guess what? The slate's wiped clean. Quarter one's quarter one. Now it's Q2, and we have to set another 12-week goal for our teams. And we get to, even if, let's say we didn't hit it, it's like throwing an interception, right? Like you have to have short memory. Like go back in the game, Russell Wilson or Dak Prescott, in Texas. And you got to go execute. So I love that about the 12-week year. It's such a simple process, but that's exactly why I said this year, guys, in the RE Source team, like we're gonna dedicate time to interview uber successful people like yourself. And what we found also was on your 12-week is they're really hard workers. I want to tell LOs, loan officers watching, and realtors, don't get seduced by that 3-hour or 4-hour or 5-hour work week. That just doesn't happen. I mean, you said, Kelly, you're trying to back it down from like 16 hours a day. Is that right?
I have backed it down from 16 hours a day, but I will tell you 2020, just like most, probably every other person watching this, we worked more hours than we ever thought that we could. And so I tried to become very intentional about backing off from that, because when all you're doing is working, you're not living.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to, as a mom and a wife, and I have 5 kids, 2 dogs and 2 cats. I want to be there for them.
Yeah.
That's important to me.
I'm going to ask you about that too in the future about your work-life balance. So let's not go there now.
Yeah. But what you were saying about the 12-week year, I mean, so for me, I broke it down even further. When I read the 12-week year, I took my goals and I broke them down by month. And I know that's probably being the overachiever.
No,
we talked about in the green room.
Yeah.
But it was important to me to see everything on a monthly basis. And I remember at the end of 2017, that last quarter, I put together a boring Excel spreadsheet. And on it, I put my actual numbers from 2017 by month. And I included my dollar volume, my unit volume, my purchases, and my refi units. And then for each month, I did the 2017 number, I put a 2018 goal number, and I put a 2018 actual. And that's where my coach came into play, because he said, you want to grow by at least 30%, Kelly. And I was like, a really big number. And everybody, especially because 2018 was not a year that a lot of people grew. So I did that. I took my numbers from 2017 and I increased them by 30%. And those were the numbers I plugged in as my goals for each month of the year. And so I had it on my schedule for the last business day of every month to sit down and plug in what my actual numbers were for that month. So I knew where I was starting on the first of the next month, what I needed to do to make sure that I either exceeded the next month's goal because I didn't achieve that month's goal, or how do I build on the success of this month?
If you're a realtor or loan officer watching, you definitely need to go back and rewind and watch that segment right there, because there's so much gold if you're wanting to scale your business. And I think pretty much everyone is. So I'm glad that Kelly's kind of unpacking this, what maybe seem like the X's and O's and maybe getting in the weeds, but that's exactly how you do it though. I agree I love that you actually took it a step further and did the month, 4-week year, I guess you could call it. I love that. And then I'm curious, I talked about this in the clubhouse room yesterday about 12-week. I'm really big on sharing those goals. So for you, I call it up and down. So if you have a manager or coach above you, and then also if you have loan officers, LOAs, and juniors, I like sharing it both ways for accountability
100%.
and not a harsh accountability. What I found is those people will come beside you as allies versus like, Kelly, did you do this? You hit your Mr.
And they're
Numbers.
invested.
Yeah, they come around you and like they're trying to help you. Even if it's a
Yes.
personal like weight loss or fitness goal or savings goal, they're right there with you. So I thought that was a big pickup too with the 12-week, just sharing that up and down.
Yeah, I remember I created those goals for that year for 2018. I shared them with my leader, and I shared them with my coach. And then I also shared them with my team. At the time, wasn't a large team. It was me and one LOA and then a processor. But we were only closing about 12 loans a year at that point. So, but sharing that with them and making sure that they were invested, and it was great. It changed the trajectory of our business and our relationship.
They see their leader, working to become a better version of herself or himself, right? And so they can go, well, shoot, if Callie's working on it, I can do it myself as well. Like we've never arrived. I know you believe that too. Like we're always constantly evolving, hopefully becoming better versions of ourselves. But let's kind of get to know you even a little bit better. So if I said, hey, Kelly, what's the most important goal on that 12-week, or if you have a 4-week plan now, personal or professional? If you had to pick one, what would you pick?
I think that, so if I look at goals, it's on the personal side. It's doing 3-day weekends with each of my children, and obviously with my husband. And when you take it down into the habits, it would be creating that margin for life. Now, my kids are all grown now. They're 19, 21, 22, 23, and 30. And my youngest is off at college. And so anytime I get to spend with them is a joy for me. And so I want to be intentional about spending that time with them. So it makes me focus on my business to a point that I'm creating that margin for the important things, which to me are my family.
I want to unpack margin. You've said it a few times, and it's on your 12-week year, create margin in life. So I want to unpack that. But you said something really smart too with the 3-day weekends. What I found last year, because it was so busy and everybody got burnt out real quickly, is if you could find those short little mini vacations, those 3-day, it really helps to reset you to where you're not going, oh my God, I want to leave for 2 months to Hawaii and never come back, right? So those little 3-day vacations, those little micro resets are actually really helpful. I'm so glad that you said that. It's a huge help, and I love that you're doing that, and it helps you with the work-life balance, I'm sure. But unpack on your 12-week year, create margin in life. I understand margin in business. Like I totally get that.
Sure.
Help me understand
Absolutely.
margin in life, though.
So for me, margin in life means creating opportunities for my creativity to come out. I think all of us have some of that in us, whether we're capable of artwork or not. That's not what creativity means to me. It's important for me to be able to rest and recharge. And that doesn't just mean sleeping in. It means taking time for myself. It means allowing me time to do my Bible study instead of rushing through it in the morning going, okay, I'm just going to open my app and do it. It's taking that time to sit down and spend time doing those things. And doing yoga and creating space for me to, it sounds silly, we live on 7.5 acres, but to walk around and look at nature and take it in. And because it's in those times of rest and recharge that I am able to clear my mind and think. And in those moments, I come up with some pretty cool ideas. And it also, I know I keep saying it, it recharges my mind, my soul, my body to be able to serve others at a higher level.
another little kind of micro approach at work-life balance, Friday off, and then just time around your house, which is great because it's, it's a reset for you. 7 acres, it looks beautiful and peaceful. And I love what you said about finding the margin that you're creating allows you to have this awesome moment by yourself that actually helps you be creative, and have different ideas and solutions for your business. So it feeds each other. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Another great piece of gold from Kelly Rogers. So we're going long already, but that's because there's so much to learn from you. So I appreciate it. Let's do some quick questions as we wrap up. And man, I wish I had you for another hour or two because this is great. What do you think the biggest challenge will be? Because I'm really just trying to edify that loan officer that's probably looking up to you right now. They're like, man, I wish I could do that. 151 million, that'd be amazing. 600 transactions. What do you think the biggest challenge is going to be for yourself and then other loan officers in 2021 and moving forward?
So I think for anybody, and I want to say this first because I don't want it to ever seem unattainable what I'm doing. I mean, I like what you said. I went from 140 families served in 2017 to 211 in 2018, 347 in 2020 to almost 600 last year. And we're on track. I look at the numbers from what we did last year to this year, and we'll blow past those again. But I think it's important to understand in this changing market that we're in, because it is changing and it always is changing. It's really about digging deeper into relationships and how you can serve others. I think so many people were so busy last year, especially with some of the refinance business that came through. It was a little part of some people's business.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people forgot the importance and the value of relationships with your referral partners. And plus we weren't able to get out and see them. And so it's that intentionality. For me, it's always, there's been 3 things that my business was built on, and it's relationships, data, and communication, over communication with everyone. But I think that for any loan officer, the key is to understanding your relationships. For me, I break it down and I look at all of my leads for the month and for the year. And then I look at the conversion rate of those leads. And then I look at it by lead source. We don't have any paid lead sources. We're all relationship based. And we do that. And this is the shocking thing. Over 70% of our business last year was purchase business. And over 50% of that business came from 20 relationships.
20, wow.
So for us,
super meaningful, efficient relationships.
Exactly. Yeah. I knew that as a person and as a leader, we all know, and I know that you know this, you can only manage so many relationships and provide and be a good friend. I look at all of my relationships as personal friends. It's important to me for that. And I think that for any loan officer or any realtor or anyone in any service related industry, that it's important to understand where are your relationships and how do you invest in them and grow them. If I see that I'm getting leads from a referral source and we're not getting many of them to apply, or we're not getting many of them to go under contract, that's an opportunity for me to sit down with that referral source or referral partner and coach them and find out what's going on. For a realtor, you may have someone in a HR office that's referring you and 2 other realtors. And your goal needs to be to get to that point where you're the only person they're referring, and they're referring you passionately. Because then you're guaranteeing that you're going to be able to provide the best experience for that client, because they're not going to be confused by all these different people they have to talk to. And you're ensuring that you're likely going to close that deal.
That's so smart. I mean, you're 100% right on the relationships, and I'm listening to you. And again, guys, you're going to have to go back and kind of rewind and watch all that to really get the layers of lessons that are in what she talked about. what I'm picking up is not what you said, but how you said it. I can tell, and I know you already, but just in that last kind of conversation, you're a CEO of your business. You're taking
Absolutely.
this, step back, whether it's 1,000 foot, 5,000, 10,000 foot level approach at running your business, and loan officers that are kind of stuck with just being a one man, one woman show. I get it. It's tough. You're like in the weeds every day. But that is a great lesson from Kelly is you've really got to be a CEO of your business, looking at the data. You talked about data, measuring the data, measuring your relationships. That's okay to do that. You have meaningful relationships, which I love. Instead of 100, you got 20. And then going, hey, this one doesn't seem to be converting. Why? That's a CEO approach. So that was the big takeaway for me there.
That's so huge, Ryan. And I tell that to every loan officer and realtor that I talk with. You are the CEO of your business, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah.
And when
good,
you
bad, or
embrace
indifferent.
that, and when you embrace that, it may be a little bit more effort on your part to understand the data, but when you start investing in your business that way, it completely evolves your business.
I got two more questions, and
Okay.
I'm glad that we're going to go a little long, but I think you guys can tell there's so much more to learn from Kelly, and so if we can leave the audience and the viewers wanting more, I think that's a good thing. So we'll have to have you back on, and maybe even a reoccurring
We'll get on
guest.
Clubhouse together.
Yeah, exactly. So my last two questions, wrapping up, if you could go back in general and just go talk to young Kelly Rogers, and give her some bit of advice now. But all the way back then, like what would that be? It can be personal or professional. I have a follow-up question that's more technical for mortgage, so save the mortgage stuff for that. But more personal, what would you tell young Kelly Rogers?
Young Kelly Rogers was 25 years old and a single mom that got into this business. And I think what I would have told myself back then was really invest in the relationships and make a point to take a step back and look at your business. Because I remember those days back then, I was just running and racing and not being intentional. I was just trying to serve as many people as I could so that I could make enough money to pay for rent and my daughter's ballet lessons. And so I think, and it goes back to what you said, it's that CEO mindset. And a CEO mindset doesn't have to come just as a $150 million producer that's 50 years old and has done this forever. A CEO mindset, I really embraced that just a few years ago, and that's what changed the trajectory of my business. I wish that I had that mindset at 25. I wish that someone had coached me on that at that point. And I guess that's one of the reasons that I really try to invest in others and give them this. There's enough business out there for all of us. And I just don't ever want to see anybody just getting by in their business.
Yeah, that's a really good takeaway. If you're new, and maybe if you're watching and you know a new loan officer or realtor, you can share that with them. That's such a great lesson. Like, just because you're new and maybe you got only a handful of transactions doesn't mean you can't have a CEO mindset when you're brand new. Take it from Kelly, 25 years to now. Like, that's one of her best takeaways that she would give herself. She's given to you now. You don't have to learn all those lessons the hard way. Take Kelly's advice and apply a CEO mindset from day one, year one, and watch your business grow. That's a great takeaway. So let me get even more in the weeds on the technical side of mortgage as we wrap up. And there's a theme that kind of just organically grew from the conversation, which I love, which is kind of a CEO mindset. Maybe it's going to be the answer to this question, but if you went back to 2017, $29 million a year, Kelly Rogers, now you got a mindset of $150 million a year mindset for Kelly Rogers. What would you go back? And you did it in a short amount of time, so I don't know that you could really do it any faster, more efficiently. But what advice would you go back and tell $29 million a year Kelly Rogers to help scale her business even quicker, maybe more efficiently or better?
Yeah, so I think it would be to really trust in investing in the right relationships. I remember
Is that internally too then? Like growing your team maybe? Or is it just
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, that's when I really started growing my team. At that point, I had one person on my team and it was my daughter. She joined me in 2014. She's now been with me for almost 7 years, but it was being very intentional about my team. And so when Paige joined the team and then We added a person, and then as business kept growing, I added another person, but I wasn't afraid to invest in my business. And that was something that I had always held back on. And when I say invest, I mean financially. I remember I was ready to grow my business, and my company, of course, operates a P&L, and they're looking at, well, I'm looking at historical data. It's almost like appraisers. Companies look at historical data to determine how much they're going to spend on your team. And we, as CEOs of our business, are looking at our goals for the future. So I had to not be afraid to financially invest in that. I remember I went to my boss and said, I will pay for this person. That's how important that I believe they are to my team, and took that on. It changed my ownership in my business. And I don't operate on an AR or P&L model. I just get paid straight bips like 90% probably of loan officers, but it just was important to me. And so as I've added team members, some of them I've taken on those salaries. But I will tell you from conversations that I've had with top performers all over the country, because just like these guys are listening to me, I'm still to this day reaching out to other high-level producers to find out, what are you doing? How can we collaborate? What can I tell you and what can you tell me that we can make each other better? I think investing in your team and just never stop learning and being passionate about making each person on your team the most successful version of themselves, and not just professionally. I sit down with my team. I take them away now in October in preparation for the new year, and we do a vision retreat. And it's more about personal vision for them than it is about vision for our team, because that's important to me. I want to be invested in them personally. So we go away, we tease out what their personal goals are for the next year. And then we also talk about, with intentionality, what we plan to do together the next year. And I found through these last 5 years, the more I invest in them personally and helping them achieve their own personal goals, the more we all succeed together. I also had to learn that sometimes you may hire somebody for a specific role, but after looking at their disc and through a deep dive interview and then spending time with them, you may realize that they really are passionate about and do very well about this strategic part of the business. And so I've tried to split up my team to where people do specific things that they're most passionate about. And that has really driven our success.
Yeah, I love what you
And
said
their happiness.
about investing into yourself. So many loan officers, and this is why I love these conversations, because they're super relatable, even to that person that's going to just start to build their team. You didn't wait for somebody to go, hey, Kelly, you should hire somebody. Hey,
No.
Kelly, I've hired somebody for you. You went and said, look, I want to grow my team. I'm willing to invest into myself. I'm willing to pay for this person, and this is the person I want. Oh, my goodness. Like, that's worth the conversation that we went, again, 30 minutes. But guys, if you're trying to scale your team, take control of your own destiny. You don't have to wait for somebody else to do it. Matter of fact, it's probably better if you take control of that and you invest in yourself, because guess what? You got skin in the game, and you're going to work even harder to make sure that it works. Guys, we went long,
That's right.
and as you can tell, there's so much to learn from Kelly. I'm sure we'll have her back on if she's willing to come back on, because her time's super
Absolutely.
valuable, and she gave it to the REsource community today. So, Kelly, thank you so much. I'm sure you left them wanting more. You left me wanting more, so we will definitely have you back on in the future.
Awesome. It's great to be here. Love you guys.
Yeah. Find her on social media, guys, Instagram and Facebook. You definitely need to follow her. She's a mega producer with tons of knowledge, and she gave it to us today. So, again, guys, find somebody to share this with. Watch it with your manager. If you have a new loan officer, a new realtor, share it with them. Share it on social. Play it in your team meetings. There's so much to learn here. Again, thanks again, Kelly Rogers, and we'll see you next week.